Pointing out that the present increment is a short-term inflation, the central bank projects that the inflation will reduce rapidly in the year 2023, and these were revealed during a media briefing held at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka today.
As you all know, inflation is running now over almost 50%, and that might go up to even close to 70%. So here the major concern from the central bank point of view, the first priority is to address inflation and inflation expectations going forward and bring down the inflation to at least to a reasonable level as soon as possible. Sooner the better. If you look at the impact of inflation on segments of people, first the hardest hit of high inflation would be the poor and vulnerable. The other ones would be able to find extremely difficult to maintain their living conditions in a very high inflation environment. So that's where I think the one recommendation, even with the IMF program, is to support the poor and vulnerable for them to at least survive in this kind of high inflation environment. If inflation goes beyond without our control, say for example if it's going to go up again even over 100%, that is basically termed as a hyperinflation situation. We certainly don't want to have that kind of situation. If we're going to see that situation, no one will be able to do any businesses, any kind of impact, and poor will be mostly hit. And even the small and medium enterprises, the next layer of impact of high interest rates and high inflation. Obviously, we also understand the high increasing interest rates will have impact on small and medium enterprises and businesses. I think today announced in terms of people who were taken some loans earlier and those who were under debt moratoriums, and we have given some guidance to the banks to consider their impact and their ability to pay, and on that basis we have given some guidance on the board approved it last week, and we are, I think, already showed the guidelines to the banks how to address. We have asked banks to look at their clients, especially SMEs, and help them, especially SMEs, those who are under debt moratoriums earlier, including tourism and other SMEs. So obviously we don't expect this kind of situation. Any businesses may not be taking new loans at these very high rates. It's impact on the existing loan book that they have to service. That is where some guidance we are given how to smooth out this operation. And obviously, on the overall macro policy point of view, in this kind of situation, it's not only monetary policy that will have impact on this situation. It will have to be a combination of overall macro policy package, including structural reforms. For example, now we are doing our part on the monetary policy, and we are doing our part on the financial system stability part in terms of looking after SMEs and others. But this puzzle will be completed once the fiscal policy package also implemented, fully implemented, and also some of the reforms, those are long due in state-owned enterprises, for example, Petroleum Corporation, Electricity Board, other areas where those have been making huge losses and becoming a burden to the public, becoming a burden to the treasury. Those will also have to be implemented parallelly, preferably at the same time. Then obviously whole complete package would be implemented, then whole situation, the macro imbalances can only be addressed with the combination of all these policies.
Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe also shared his views regarding the overall impact on all sectors, including tourism in the country due to the prevailing crisis.
Because of the country situation, because of the situation we are going through, there are other sectors, SMEs, suffering more than the tourism sector. That we all have to recognize. But tourism sector is the one that enjoyed the longest debt moratorium from 2019, almost 3 years. Under debt moratorium. Other sectors had a shorter time period. Their moratorium ended in, I think, 31st March this year. No, the other sectors.
31st December.
31st December, that was ended. But if you look at the sectors, what is the sector that can recover fastest in this kind of situation? I think tourism is one sector which can recover faster than another sector if the economy, if we can provide diesel and petrol, all other things. But there are other sectors. That is why this circular will take care of all the other sectors. I don't see any reason why only preferential treatment should be given to a sector that they have already enjoyed the longer period. And to address the situation, I don't think tourism, the authorities should be focusing on how to, recover, promote their businesses, recover the sector, rather than putting them up on a more kind of a debt burden. I think that is then if we are going to give to that sector, I think it's not fair for others. It is someone else's money that they are asking. It's not. Otherwise, the sector will have to come up with the financial mechanism, or it has to be coming from the taxpayers' money.
Lecturer of University of Colombo, Umesh Moramudali, says the present inflation will return to a controllable level by the end of this year. He pointed out that the inflation has risen thus far due to wrong foreign exchange policies. Lecturer of Colombo University, Umesh Moramudali, said that the main cause for the existing inflation is the change in the foreign exchange. He said that the US dollar was forcefully kept at 200 rupee mark during the previous government period. He added that floating of the rate continued to depreciate the rupee in a drastic level after retaining the rate in a forceful manner. He also said that with this new inflow of US dollars became more popular through illegal means, including undial and hawala systems, than the legal banking system. He pointed out that such circumstances led to the increase in the foreign exchange. He added that the prices of the commodities in the country are determined through the foreign exchange. Accordingly, he pointed out that wrong foreign exchange policies led to the rise in inflation. He added that the foreign exchange policy have been revised and rectified to a certain extent at present. He further said that if the country receives the IMF loan facility and ensures inflow of US dollars into the country, then the inflation rate as well as the foreign exchange can be stabilized.
In the meantime, a decision has been reached to temporarily suspend the issuance date of fuel for healthcare workers. Health authorities have said that this program will be suspended for 48 hours considering the prevailing crisis situation in the country.
Accordingly, the Ministry of Health said that the program to issue fuel for the healthcare workers will resume after reviewing the existing situation in the country.
Under this program, healthcare workers receive fuel on Fridays. Accordingly, reports have indicated that healthcare workers, including doctors in several areas, were seen in queues near filling stations from this morning allocated for them under this program. Several railway trade unions launched a protest action this afternoon interfering the entrance to the railway headquarters. The protest was launched due to the unavailability of fuel. Meanwhile, several train journeys were cancelled this morning, including the intercity express train from Colombo Fort to Kankesanture. Joint Trade Unions organization said that a strike action will be launched if the authorities fail to fulfill their demands. Issuance of fuel was commenced at the Vaunia SLTB depot this morning. Reports have indicated that steps were taken to issue diesel for private buses as well. Valimada filling stations received diesel and petrol stocks yesterday after several days. A tense situation occurred after a group of businessmen attempted to enter the queue inappropriately following the issuance of fuel. 150 litres of fuel have been recovered from a forest area near the Thalgampala Sipetco filling station in Gaul. The stock was recovered during a raid carried out by the police. Reports have indicated that arrested filling station employees were produced before the courts today. Meanwhile, the Special Task Force arrested a suspect who had 2,160 litres of kerosene in his possession in Kalmule, Manampara area yesterday. A three-wheeler driver who was at a queue near Payagala IOC filling station was admitted to Kalutara Teaching Hospital at 2:30 a.m. due to an ailment. Payagala police confirmed that the 60-year-old resident in Ravatavatta, Moratuwa, had died at 5:30 a.m. People have failed to direct attention on their own health, which was evident with the number of deaths which occurred in the recent past. Accordingly, the national television has organized an awareness program in this regard for the masses. Meanwhile, a pregnant woman who had arrived at the Battaramulla Immigration and Emigration Department to obtain the passport from Dikkoya Hatton yesterday was admitted to the hospital for a sudden delivery with the assistance of the Sri Lanka Army personnel stationed at the premises. Reports have indicated that the woman had almost delivered the baby upon her admission, and the personnel attached to the Sri Lanka Army Medical Corps had been aiding her throughout this period. A vehicle transporting a foreign tourist had abruptly stopped in Mathura area due to insufficient fuel. Accordingly, personnel attached to the 3rd Gamanu Regiment had assisted them with fuel and taken to the nearest filling station.
Canadian High Commissioner David McKinnon called on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa this afternoon.
The meeting was held at the President's house in Colombo. A number of bilateral matters and ways and means of further strengthening of diplomatic relations between the two countries were discussed at the meeting.
Chairman of the Public Utilities Commission, Janaka Ratnayaka, says petrol and diesel can be sold at a price of approximately 250 rupees. He made these remarks when the Committee on Public Enterprises met in Parliament yesterday under the chairmanship of MP Professor Charita Herath. PUCSL Chairman Ratnayaka mentioned that this was revealed when checking the statistics on the import prices of petroleum and the taxes levied by the government. Accordingly, he pointed out that petrol and diesel can be provided in Sri Lanka at 200 rupees less than the current price. According to this, petrol and diesel can be sold at a price of approximately 250 rupees. He also said that the government has collected a tax of 280 rupees for 1 litre of diesel imported on the 1st of July. He said that this is his personal statement and he would make the statement after consulting the data. Accordingly, the members present asked about the awareness of the officials of the Commission, and the officials of the Board of Directors said that they are not aware of it. It was also mentioned here that the Ministry of Finance has not formally informed about this. COP chairman mentioned that the statement made by PUCSL chairman regarding the fuel price is most serious and the attention of the country is being drawn on this. Therefore, officials from the Ministry of Power and Energy and the PUCSL chairman are expected to summon before the COP to inspect the matter in the future, said Professor Herath.
And meanwhile, the Colombo Fort Magistrate Court has rejected a request made by the Colombo Fort Police to issue a restraining order preventing the protest from entering the vicinity of the President's house in Colombo Fort tomorrow and the day after. Accordingly, Colombo Additional Magistrate Kermin Perera said that the police are authorized to take necessary actions in the event of any unlawful activities. Meanwhile, an enjoining order issued yesterday against a protest organized at the Orchid Mawata today was revised, granting permission only for clergymen to participate in the said protest.
Moving on to more local stories, Minister Mahinda Amaravira says all steps have been taken to distribute the urea fertilizer stocks expected to arrive in the country in the coming weekend among the farmer communities with the assistance of all officers in the agriculture sector.
He emphasized the importance of the assistance of the politicians in various strata to successfully implement this project. Minister Mahinda Amaravira made these remarks during a meeting held with Bagwich parliamentarians today. Attention of the meeting was directed on various issues including the distribution of fertilizer for farmers and the supply of fuel. Minister Mahinda Amaravira said that 40,000 rupees worth urea fertilizer pack will be distributed at a rate of 10,000 rupees under the World Bank loan facility. He said that the World Bank has agreed to provide necessary financial assistance to produce urea fertilizer. He added that World Food Programme has also agreed to provide a large consignment of urea fertilizer at free of charge, which will be distributed among low-income earning farmer families. He said that the country will not face the need to import rice again.
The police request all organizations, including public and political activists, to enjoy their rights within the legal framework.
And IGP CD Vikramaratne urged all relevant parties to refrain from damaging public and private properties when carrying out activities for the protection of rights.
IGP CD Vikramaratne said that Sri Lanka police will always honour the freedom of expression and freedom of peaceful gatherings ensured through the constitution. He also said that Sri Lanka police will take necessary steps to promote and protect these rights of the people. He pointed out that all have the duty to act in a manner which would not violate another person's rights. He emphasized that the police officers are bound to safeguard the law of the country ensured under the constitution and not to tolerate any illegal activity conducted under the guise of freedom of expression while causing damages to public and private properties and violating the country's law. Therefore, he requested all parties, including public and political activists, to enjoy their rights within the legal framework. Senior lecturer of Open University of Sri Lanka, Madhubhashini Galagedra, emphasizes that it is the responsibility of all media institutions to act in a manner without instigating any negativity among the public during the crisis situation. She made these remarks while speaking to the media. Reporting several incidents contradicting media ethics were observed in the past couple of days amidst the prevailing crisis situation. Such reporting would further frustrate and demoralize the people. Dr. Madhubhashini Galagedra said that therefore reporting of incidents should be carried out within media ethics.
The 43rd Brigade and Samagi Janabalawege made remarks to media today over the establishment of an interim all-party government. President of 43rd Brigade Karunaratne Paravitana said that all political powers excluding the Rajapaksas should reach a consensus. He said that the several politicians and political powers were currently working to form such an alliance in the parliament. He added that negotiations will also be held with all parties, other parties as well. Accordingly, he said that all-party government and a common program as requested by the nation will be delivered.
අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වන්නේ ඉතාමත්ම කඩිනමින් මේ රට ඉල්ලා සිටින මේ සර්වපාක්ෂික ආණ්ඩුව සහ මේ පොදු අවම වැඩපිළිවෙල බල ගන්නවන්නට වැඩ කරන්නට.
අද අපි සර්වපාක්ෂික
SJB MP Nalin Bandara said that all parties apart from JVP are rallying together to prepare a common mechanism. He said that the professionals and the intellectuals have requested for an all-party government.
And meanwhile, the General Secretary of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, Tilwin Silva, says establishing an all-party government will not be fruitful without a suitable plan in place.
He made these remarks during a public meeting held in Ambalangoda yesterday. General Secretary of the JVP, Tilwin Silva, said that the current government is similar to an all-party government excluding National People's Power. He said that this government has the objective to retain the governing authority. He added that such a government should be for a short term and temporary, and they would extend their assistance if the government presents a program to rebuild the country. He further added that according to their proposal, the president should resign and opportunity should be given for them to form a government for a period of 6 months under their leadership to resolve the present situation in the country. MP of National Freedom Front, Jayantha Samaravira, says the Act of Foreign Exchange number 12 of 2017 should be revised immediately.
He made these remarks during a media briefing held in Colombo today. MP of NFF Jayantha Samaravira said that a special systematic mechanism was in place to inquire into the export revenue of the country under the Exchange Control Act number 24 of 1953. However, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe led Yahapalana government revised this mechanism in 2017. Stay tuned for international news other side of this break.
හොඳම දේ විශ්වාසයෙන් ට්‍රීට් කරන්න. Prima Treats. Life is a treat.
And we move on to foreign news now, starting off with stories from United Kingdom. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced his resignation after a party rebellion that saw several high-level officials resign. UK Prime Minister Johnson said it was painful for him not to see his term through, adding he regrets he not being successful in convincing his party to continue to support him, calling the party's herd instinct was powerful. He did not apologize for his conduct in office. He said he has appointed a new cabinet while he remains as UK Prime Minister until a successor is chosen, adding a timetable for his departure would be announced next week.
Protesters take to the street of east and west Libya as anger rises all over political deadlock and living conditions. Protesters have broken out across Libya in recent days. The House of Representatives in the eastern city of Tobruk was set on fire and hundreds of protesters in the capital Tripoli have been descending on the city centre of denounced armed militants and increasing prices of basic goods. The protests have come as Libya's numerous political facts remain at odds as a constitutional framework and roadmap to elections as United Nations-backed negotiations in Cairo and Geneva between representatives from Tripoli's High Council of State and Tobruk House of Representatives have been unable to come to an agreement.
Heavy shelling occurred along the front line in the Donetsk region yesterday, but Russian forces made few advances, the United Kingdom's Defence Ministry has said. The Defence Ministry said this was likely due to the fact the Russian units involved in last week's gains in the Luhansk region were reconstituting. Civilians are being evacuated from the flashpoint eastern city of Sloviansk as Russian forces continue their relentless offensive in the Donbas region at the heart of the war. Sloviansk mayor says 23,000 people out of a pre-war population of 110,000 have yet to leave, but that people are being bussed out every day. He also says 17 people have been killed in Sloviansk since Russian forces focused their offensive on the Donetsk area of Donbas after conquering neighboring Luhansk.
Prima Kotami Pantan.
Welcome back, and now it's your sports update. And the second test match between Sri Lanka and Australia will set to begin tomorrow, and the Sri Lanka cricket informs that 3 players have tested positive for COVID-19, and the test cricket captain Dibut Karunaratne says that the playing 11 for tomorrow's test match is not finalized yet.
The match will be played at Galle International Cricket Stadium. Players from both the sides engaged in the practice sessions at the stadium yesterday. Australia secured a 10-wicket victory against Sri Lanka in the first test match. Issuing a statement this morning, Sri Lanka Cricket announced that Dhananjaya De Silva, Jeffrey Van der Say and Asitha Fernando have tested positive for COVID-19 and directed for quarantine. Meanwhile, Praveen Jayavikrama, who tested positive for COVID-19 previously, is still in isolation. However, Angelo Matthews, who was tested positive for COVID-19 during the first test match, has resumed trainings and may feature in the second test match. Lakshan Sandakan and Prabhat Jayasuriya have been called up for the squad of tomorrow's game. They have also been called up Dunit Velalage, Mahish Tikshana and Lakshita Manasinghe as well. Second test match will be live telecast on Channel I of the national television from 10 AM onwards.
And more on your sports stories. The Pakistani Test squad has arrived at the country last night for the 2 test matches in that series, and it will be held in the near future as well.
This series will be played under the World Test Championship. The Pakistan squad includes 18 players and will be captained by Babar Azam. The Pakistan team expected to take part in a 3-day practice match ahead of the Test series. The practice match will be played from 11th to the 13th of July. The first Test match will begin on the 16th of July at the Galle International Cricket Stadium. The second Test match will begin on the 24th of July at R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo.
Fantan!
And with that, we conclude tonight News Duchess. Tomorrow at the very same time. I'm Charita signing off with Sharifa. Stay safe. Good night.
Good night.